I do ASMR now. Today's belches and burps will be brought to you by Olipop. You know, I used to be a Pepsi guy. Actually, if we're being honest, I was an RC Cola guy, but try finding that at your local Aldi. Anyway, I used to be a Pepsi guy. Every Sunday was my cheat day, and every Sunday I'd get myself a nice Pepsi. If I could find it in a can, great. If I could find it in a glass bottle, even better. But then I started to get more aware, not just of my own health, but of everything that's happening in the world. And I learned that Pepsi bought SodaStream. Now, maybe that doesn't seem like that big of a deal at first until you realize that SodaStream is an Israeli company that is actively complicit in Israel's policy of displacing the indigenous Bedouin Palestinian citizens of present-day Israel in the Negev region, and has a long history of racial discrimination against Palestinian workers. So, if you're trying to be more conscientious of what's going on in the world and you crave that soda taste but don't crave being complicit in genocide, switch to Olipop. With 2 grams of sugar per can, it tastes good without weighing on your conscience. One person's trash is another person's spiritual practice, or how to serve the mother we share. Welcome back, trash pandas and dumpster divas, sacred recyclers and compost queens. Welcome back to another sermon with the Irreverent Reverend. Today we're going to talk about how picking up trash has become an integral part of my practice and a way to honor our Earth Mama. I'll also offer practical ways you can do your part to help keep this planet we all call home a bit cleaner, a bit more sacred, and it won't involve you pulling tires out of ravines or getting a job in waste management. So, my friends, let us gather around the dumpster fire. Let us sort our compostables and recyclables, and let us begin. Amen. Ah woman. Ah them. In the latter half of the 20-teens, I was playing at being a writer, as Bukowski would say. Thinking about that time in my life at this point on my journey, it feels like another lifetime, literally. I've had past life regressions that feel more alive than who I was back in the 2015 era. I had a life as a fern, a past life as a fern. Oh man, it was a beautiful life. 10 out of 10. Would fern again. Hands down. My favorite past life I've remembered thus far. But I'm getting off topic. When I was playing at being a writer, my main focus was a young adult sci-fi fantasy musical trilogy of trilogies. I'll give you a moment to let all of that word salad sink in. In these novels, there was a character that fulfilled the wise old wizard hermit archetype called Nev Nami. Nev lived on the outskirts of this farming community from which he had been excommunicated, near what I was calling the Plastic Sea, which was a fictional extension of the very non-fictional Great Pacific Garbage Patch floating between Hawaii and California. Part of Nev's practice, which he would later share with the protagonists in a wax-on, wax-off Mr. Miyagi moment, was to go down to the shore of the Plastic Sea and pull out trash. And he would use that trash in much the same way that the folks at Earthship Biotexture in New Mexico use reclaimed tires, cans, and bottles to build their Earthships. If you're unfamiliar with Earthships, it's fascinating stuff, and I will get out there one day to experience them. But in the meantime, I'll leave the deets in the description, and you can check that out yourself. Anyway, But back to the story and my past life as a writer. I'm not sure which came first, the idea that Nev, this wise old wizard, would spend his days meditatively picking up trash, or if I started doing that around my neighborhood. And it's not like I was regularly dumping oil into the Gulf of Mexico or planting invasive species. I was always a green child. After all, I'm a child of the 90s, raised on Captain Planet and Fern Gully. But I do remember when I was playing at being a writer that I traveled to San Diego and visited the zoo. There was a display that showed the evolution of rats' nests throughout the centuries, and how more and more trash was progressively added to the nests. Styrofoam and plastic replacing grass and sticks. Something about that display has stuck with me for a decade. In that moment, I thought about how awful it was that our pollution was being used by these poor animals that didn't know any better, that were just trying to live their best rat life. Like, imagine if you were building a home and had to use old Capri Sun packets in lieu of drywall. That display sparked something in me. A resolve for renewal. A commitment to tiny acts of restoration. And when I got back from San Diego, I devoted parts of my Mondays to picking up trash as I wandered through parks, high as a kite and having ideas for my books. Nowadays, I'm writing less and smoking less, but I still pick up trash around whatever neighborhood I happen to be living in while I play at being a transitional nomad. And now I even have my own magic wand that would probably impress Nev himself. And by magic wand, I mean a trash picker, courtesy of the fine folks at Allegheny Cleanways and Friends of the Riverfront. And now my litter walkabouts are my way of honoring our Earth Mama and all that she represents and all that she brings to us.
Aww.
And I'm not sure how fleshed out this idea was in the novels, but nowadays when I pick up trash, I think of it as a metaphor for healing on the spiritual awakening walkabout. Sometimes you're picking up big things like discarded ink cartridges and tires. You know, the kind of unresolved trauma that just won't die. Other times you're working on your little triggers, like cigarette butts. And there are a lot of butts. I see more butts on the street than I do in strip clubs. And those butts on the street, they're not twerking for tips. And speaking of tips, yes. I have found money on almost all of my walks. The most I ever found was a $20 bill, and that was only the second coolest find that day. The first, well, that was an old glass soda bottle with part of a tree grown around it. But it wasn't an Olipop bottle, because I've never seen them in bottles, but I bet they would taste delicious in them. A new kind of soda for a new kind of human. Olipop, sponsor me. Nowadays, if I find any money, in the form of coins and their tails up, I'll flip them over so they're heads up and maybe put them on a bench as a good luck offering to the collective, honoring the other folks walking about on the mother we share. Or if it's a day and I'm feeling extra magnanimous, I'll gather them all up and drop them in a business's tip jar. It literally pays to pick up trash. Well, I guess anyone working in waste management would tell you that. All right, bad joke, never mind. Anyway, somewhere along this path, I started doing litter walkabouts to honor the moon cycles. I very much responded to the idea that when the moon was new, we could use it as a time to make space for what was ready to grow, to literally make space by literally throwing out what no longer serves us. Literally. When I was offering breathwork journeys at the Millvale House, shout out to Janet and the other practitioners there, I would invite the breathers to write down an intention of something they were releasing and something they were calling in. And I'd invite them to give me whatever it was they were releasing so I could add it to my next haul. By offering their intentions to the trash, they weren't just releasing the past, they were composting it. It was a powerful way to connect our human activities not only with the cycles of the moon, but to connect us a bit more with our Earth Mama. After all, the sacred isn't just in temples and churches, it's in alleyways, in fields, and in curbsides too. Because the planet is our mother. Or, if you have mama trauma, then we can just say that the Earth is our home, and it's a home we share. And what this practice of spiritual trash walkabouts has taught me most of all is that we always have a choice in how we operate in our interactions, and specifically in our interactions with this planet. We can choose to see the planet as a resource, a thing to exploit and profit from. And that's not to say that the planet isn't a resource. Just look at all the things you can make for free from all the plants and the trees the Earth continually provides. But we can also choose to see the planet as an extension of ourselves, noticing that what we do to one of us, we do to all. When we decimate a land's ecosystem, for instance, it affects the entire planet. To put it another way, if, say, you were right-handed and someone cut off your right hand, it would affect how you lived your entire life. Especially if you used your hand for, let's say, more solo spiritual practices.
You.
Now, not all trash is physical. Some of the worst pollution comes from violence and systems of destruction, and nowhere is this more apparent than when we look at the genocide and ecocide that the Israeli government is committing in Palestine. A 2024 article on frontiers.org claimed that in just the first 2 months following the October 7th retaliation from the Israeli Defense Forces, the emissions in Palestine equaled the burning of at least 150,000 tons of coal. Do you know how much 150,000 tons is? That's the equivalent of about 50,000 Asian elephants. And there are barely those many Asian elephants left in the world, and that's a whole other issue for a whole other day. At the time that article was published, the projected reconstruction of the damaged buildings, if approached through conventional methods, was estimated to result in an additional 30 million metric tons of greenhouse gases. That figure alone surpasses the yearly emissions of over 100 countries. For comparison, the EPA reports that in 2022, greenhouse gas emissions in the United States was 6,343 metric tons. And remember, this figure comes from 2024. This figure was an estimation when there were only 2 months of decimation to the land in Palestine, not over a year's worth of destruction. Who knows how many millions of metric tons would be released if that area was able to be rebuilt. These numbers aren't just shocking. They're reminders that war doesn't just destroy lives. It destroys our shared home, the mother we share. Now look, I'm not naive enough to think my pontificating about this is going to change anything. I'm a mystic with a mic, after all, not a lobbyist, not a politician. And I can't give anyone new eyes or force anyone to see the world as an extension of themselves. And I don't expect you, dear listener, to go out and pick up trash each week. You're not a protagonist in my young adult sci-fi fantasy musical novel, and I'm not an old hermit who lives in a tower by the sea. Yet. What I am inviting you to do is just consider your relationship with the planet. Consider your relationship with consumerism. Maybe the next time you're sitting in a park, you can look around your immediate area for any candy wrappers or empty beer cans and toss them in a bin on your way out. Maybe you can reconsider how many napkins you grab the next time you pick up your takeaway. Maybe you can reuse your floss. And look, I'm not Captain Planet. I don't have 5 diverse teens yelling out the elements, including heart, for some reason, while they're summoning me. I'm a guy with a trash claw and a past life as a fern who's inviting you to consider that maybe, just maybe, we're more connected than the powers that be would have us believe. And as Captain Planet would say, the power is yours. And I would add the power of perception is yours too. A Course in Miracles teaches us perception is a mirror, not fact, and what we see is our state of mind reflected outward. If we see separation, it is only because a part of our mind is separated from our Creator. And look, I'm not being judgmental, but it's clear that the minds of those in charge are separated. But if we choose to see unity and interconnectedness, then it is because our mind is one with our Creator. The choice is yours. The power is yours. And right now, dear listeners, I'd like to invite you into a bit of a process that allows you to take back some of that power and see the interconnectedness in all things. This is a bit of a combination of different practices, most notably the meditations of Thich Nhat Hanh and the Wayapa work meditation practice of the Aboriginal Australians. This is a practice to allow us to remember our connection with everything. So wherever you are, just start taking some nice deep breaths as we do. In and out through the nose. And if you're driving or walking, you can leave your eyes open. And if you're sitting in your room or in your office, you can leave your eyes open as well. And as you're breathing deeply, just become aware of how you're sitting or standing in the space that you're in. Notice if you're allowing the chair or the couch beneath you to hold you, or if you're braced against it. Feel free to allow yourself to rest in that chair or that couch or the ground. And just feel the weight of gravity pulling you into that couch or chair. One of my meditation teachers and dear friends, Helen, talks about gravity as the force of love from the earth. So allow yourself to feel that love. This love that keeps us held here, rooted here, not restricted, not restrained, lovingly held so we don't go flying off as the earth spins madly on. And still breathing deeply and still feeling that loving groundedness. Allow your eyes to begin to wander around the room, letting them rest on whatever they will for a moment before passing on. Letting your neck and head gently follow your eyes' gaze as you look around your room or the space that you're in. And as you do this, see if you can allow the images in the room to come to your eyes instead of your eyes reaching out to the images. And as you're looking around, maybe your gaze rests on a plant in the corner of your room, flowers on your desk, your pet lying on your bed, or a child playing in the corner, or the leaves on a tree out of your window. And if nothing obviously living is anywhere within your eyesight, just let it rest on something. A pillow, a lamp, a television. We're not boring our vision into that object. We're resting it gently there. And still breathing deeply, you can begin to recite this in your mind. Breathing in, I am aware of the lamp, the tree, the pet, etc. Breathing out, I send peace, love, acceptance to the lamp, to the tree, to the pet, etc. Breathing in, I am aware of the object. Breathing out, I send love to the object. Breathing in, I am aware of the object. Breathing out, I send love to the object. Breathing in, I am aware of the object. Breathing out, I share my awareness with this object. Breathing in, I am aware of this object. Breathing out, I am aware I share this space with this object. Breathing in, I am aware of this object. Breathing out, I am peaceful, grateful, and glad I share this space with this object. Breathing in, I am aware of this object. Breathing out, I choose to see this object as an extension of me. Breathing in, I am aware of this object. Breathing out, I bless this object. And feel free to do this for as long as you need to. But when you're ready, go ahead and blink your eyes a few times. Maybe rock your head back and forth. And come back to this realm of reality. But but only if you want to. And so, go forth, Planeteers. Go, hug a tree, DIY your toothpaste, upcycle your floss picks, and for the love of Gaia, don't be a dick to her. Amen. All women. All them. Bing, bang, bong. With probiotics, botanicals, and plant fiber, Olipop's Vintage Cola is a new kind of soda, and it makes me feel like a new kind of man. A man who was once a fern. A man, here's another good one. I was a Hawaiian elder, a witch, a Hawaiian witch who was also excommunicated. Is my novel just a collection of all of my past lives fictionalized?